So hello everyone, my latest guest is Aidan Roberts, photographer and journalist. He took pictures of the British royal family and he photographed at festivals such as Untold. He has his own website called Cluj XYZ. In our podcast discussion, we talked about his career, ambitions and future plans. Stay tuned. So here he is now joining us, Aidan. Hello.
Hi, how's it going?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
So tell us a bit about the beginning of your career. How did you start photographing?
Well, originally I was actually doing video, and that started with a bit of a fascination for abandoned buildings, something called urbex or urban exploration. I used to go around quite a lot and kind of do some pretty cruddy home videos on an old handy cam that I had, and then I ended up going into study media, where I studied video effectively. And the thing that I think stood out the most about the studies there that I had, and kind of my strongest point was really around camera angles and composition and things like that. And so I figured out that basically I could do the same thing but with photography, and it would be a lot more of a more instant result, because with video you have to spend a lot of time editing and preparing everything and storyboarding everything, but whereas with photography it's more instant, it's more in the moment. And so I'm relatively impatient, so that served me quite well. So that's pretty much how it started.
I see. So videography turned into photography and then you created your brand.
Pretty much, yeah.
You are from the UK. What is the difference between UK and Romania in terms of living and working?
Well, there's a lot of pluses and minuses on both sides, of course. So one of the things that I would say is most different about Romania compared to UK is that the UK is very politically correct as a country. And I mean, that's fine, but it does sort of hold you back in some ways because, and I'll give you an example. When I try and describe it to people, I say like Romania is a bit kind of rough around the edges. And in a way that's good, because in England, for example, if they're digging up the street and they're planning some roadworks, they'll usually put a sign about a month ahead of the actual planned date for when they're going to start digging up the road to warn people that in a month from now there's going to be some roadworks in this area and to kind of watch out. And then they'll, closer to the date, they'll put up kind of flashing lights and other barriers and fences, and basically if you fall in that hole once they've started constructing, you can sue somebody and and all the rest of it. So everyone's kind of watching over their shoulder and a bit worried about what they're going to do and all the rest of it. And in Romania, if they're going to dig up the street, they'll probably do it in the middle of the day without any notice, without any warning, without any signs. And if you fall in that hole, you're basically an idiot. So in a way, it's just a little bit more real, and that's been quite a nice. It's refreshing because, like I said, the UK is very politically correct in the sense that everything you want to say, everything you want to do, whether it be a joke or something, you kind of got to wonder: is this going to bother someone? Is this going to offend somebody? And I don't know. I don't feel that that's a very nice way to kind of experience even just general conversation. So, like I said, Romania is a bit more chill in that respect, but. And the living side of it, yeah, it's the same thing. It's a beautiful country. There are many beautiful people here. People are very nice, very kind, and people are also very nice and kind in the UK as well. I mean, that's not a big difference there, but I found Romania to be a very, very comforting country to live in. And in terms of work, it's obviously been harder for me to find work here when I started out. Because effectively I had to find a job and I didn't speak any Romanian at all at that time. But surprisingly, I managed to find a job in relatively short period of time, in less than a month since moving to the country. So it's been uphill upwards ever since.
I see. So Romanians are more down to earth and UK are more formal, more careful about how they present themselves.
I think that's a good way to phrase it, yeah.
And why did you start a career here? What did you motivated you to move here in Romania?
Well, the original motivation was a relationship. That's kind of what got me here initially, and a desire for change, as I've sort of hinted at. The UK is a very more strict kind of society in terms of the way you can act and speak, and I like to live life. I'm not going to say on the edge because that's definitely not true, but I like to live life in a way that's more comfortable and people, we have common ground and it's just a bit of fun. we only live once, right? So when I decided I wanted to make a change, I decided I wanted to go somewhere where there weren't too many of us Brits. Eastern Europe tended to be quite different in terms of the UK, and circumstances that that were dating back even way before I even thought about moving, basically led me to a small town, well, it's a small city technically, called Turnavon, just outside of Turgomorish, which is where my ex-girlfriend used to live. And eventually I moved to Turgomorish, and after a year of living in Turgomorish and realizing that was not the sort of relationship I wanted to be in, I moved off to Cluj, and I've been basically here ever since. And so that's how I got here. And in terms of the photography and the career, I mean, I was very lucky. Like I said, I got a job within basically a month of living in Romania, which I think is actually quite surprising. Turned out to be for a British company, but that's how it is, I guess. And then the photography was just something I've been doing for a long time. I mean, going back a long time now. And effectively, my first shoot here in Romania was on October 5th, 2013, with a model named Chila, and she's gone on to some incredible career path with her modeling since then, and it's been nice to be a part of that journey. It's just something I do. It was just a natural progression for me to bring the photography here as well.
Mm-hmm. So your brand is already a decade old, and you have photographed lots of big names, and you have been invited to lots of events. Which one was your biggest achievement?
So you're right. Yeah, it's it started in 2010. The official, the actual domain name alrphotography.com. So that is what are we now? 2026. So 16 years basically, or let's say 15, just to be fair.
Awesome.
Wow, long time. And over the last few years, I've had a great opportunity to work with events such as Untold Festival, Electric Castle, and they obviously bring you close to big names. But I think for me, this kind of is it's kind of like a bit of a life highlight in a way, and a bit of recognition about confidence boosting in my work. Is a good few years ago now, kind of just after the pandemic kicked off, the Duke of Edinburgh International Award they're established here in Romania as well. And I was invited to take pictures of their award ceremonies, and at that event, and I was also specifically asked to photograph the person, was His Royal Highness Prince Edward, which is a kind of a big deal considering I just come from Bristol in the southwest of the United Kingdom, and all of a sudden I'm taking pictures of who was effectively the Queen's son.
Yes.
And I just never expected that to happen, and so it was an amazing experience. And actually during that time, it wasn't just Prince Edward that I was taking pictures of at that time. Obviously, it was the entire event, but also present was Prince Guillaume, I think his name, if I correctly pronounce it, of Luxembourg, and also Prince Radu and Princess Margareta of Romania. So it was an interesting thing, and I'm very pleased to say that my pictures for the UK's the British royal family are actually on their official website, and so that's kind of that was my that's my flex. I guess you could say I just never imagined that would happen. Probably wouldn't have happened in the UK, put it that way.
Awesome. I mean, you can go better than that, than royals.
It doesn't feel like it. Like I said, really, if anything, it was just validation of the work that I do, and being trusted for such an important event, and obviously with such major figures. It was a great boost to my confidence around the sort of work that I do. So that was what I took away from it, but it's still a big flex for me. Yes.
Awesome. Speaking of shooting, which sessions do you prefer, on location or at the studio, and which one is easier for you?
So I think easier. The studio is always easier because you have control, right? You have control over the lighting. You have control over the basically all elements of what make a picture a picture. The only thing you don't have is the interesting scenery. So obviously in the studio you have backdrops and you can manipulate lighting and have a lot of fun with that. But if you want something more interesting, then I think actually on location tends to be more up that avenue. And the only trouble with being on location is you don't have control always over the lighting. You don't always have control. You don't have control over the weather in almost every circumstance. And then there's a lot of other people, and it's obviously a bit different of an experience both for the model as well. But from an easier perspective, definitely the studio is easier, but on location sessions are definitely more interesting.
Awesome. Also, you have a website called Cluj XYZ where you publish your articles. Why did you create the site? What was the inspiration?
Well, when I moved to Tugomores, I very quickly became aware of just how hard it was to find out what's going on in the city. And that didn't change when I moved to Cluj. And so as I was, kind of getting settled in with Cluj, I wanted to know, what events were happening, how do things with immigration work, and, how do I do this? How do I do that? Where can I go for this? What can I eat here, et cetera, et cetera. And so I figured if I'm learning this stuff for myself, I would just basically create a little website, throw it up there, and then if it's useful for me, it's probably useful for someone else. And it sort of took shape from there. But then the pandemic came along in 2020, and that lack of information translated to effectively the rules and regulations that we all had to follow to settle into what was then the new normal of being locked down, having to get permission to go out and carry a form around with us or face potential fines or even prosecution. And so I dedicated a lot of time, and this is before AI existed. It was in its infancy, something I wasn't using. So, getting information and translating it and getting it onto the website. And before I knew it, that website became, I think, probably one of the only English resources for people needing to know what's happening during the pandemic. And, it's things like the PDF form that we had to fill out in order to, kind of print and go out if we want to go outside with it. Having an English version of that form that automatically translated to Romanian. And it soon became apparent that the website had so much more potential, but also that people genuinely were just relying on it. And I've heard from a lot of people that, you're the guy who runs, Cluj XYZ. I didn't know that sort of thing. And it's surprising just how much reach it actually has. But at the core, it was learning for myself and just sharing with the community.
So it helps other people to discover Cluj in a different kind of way.
Yeah, I think that's, that and me, I'm also learning and exploring, right, while I'm writing for it, so.
Awesome. As a journalist, which topics are the most important to you? You said representing Cluj, but what other topics do you cover on the website?
So it definitely started with, like I just said, general information, facts, places to visit, cool things to check out, kind of like a touristy thing. But obviously, as I've become more and more Clujian, let's say, and more of a citizen of this city, and, it's over 10 years here now in Cluj, I have become much closer to some of the issues that, that Romania has as a whole, or the government has, or the city has. And so I've been kind of getting more involved with, subjects that I would say are of particular importance, not just to me, but I think generally to other people. Things like road traffic safety, the politics. Obviously, we had a very rocky election period last year. And it was just a very strange time, and a lot of people didn't know what was going on, and at the same time neither did I. So it was a good opportunity to learn about these things, become informed. I think once you live in a country and you make it your home, it's you kind of owe it not just to yourself, but also to the people that live here to be informed about everything that's going on and affecting people's lives. And so this has become more of a subject matter for me, and kind of resolving issues or raising awareness of issues.
Awesome. What are your future plans as a photographer and as a journalist? What can we expect from the future?
So with photography, I'm just going to keep going forwards. Over the last year or so, I've been kind of getting used to and exploring film photography, something I never really thought was going to happen. A friend of mine sort of kicked it off, and I just sort of fell in love with it. And over a year later now, I'm at, I think, just over 30 various different film cameras dating back as far as I think the 1920s. So it's it's become an obsession. I don't know if it's a hobby at this point, more of an obsession. But I want to get to the point where, and I think I'm almost there, where I can actually offer film photography experiences and shoots to clients with a reliable outcomes, because it's a lot of experimenting. It's a very, very different learning experience. Light behaves, I wouldn't say differently, but you don't get the results instantly. So you have to really plan in advance. And I've taken technology for granted, to just see the instant result and adjust on the fly. Now it has to be, light meter from the beginning, measure the light. and just then 36 shots later or 12 shots later or something like this, you develop a film and you determine whether it was okay or not. So that's expensive as well as high risk, but that's kind of where I want to go with it. But I'm going to continue with what I'm doing now and just kind of growing the brand. It's become very, I would say, very strong in Cluj. I'd say relatively busy. It's not my full-time job. I work full-time for a main company here in Cluj, and this is kind of a side hobby, but I take it very seriously. And from the journalism point of view, yeah, the website sort of slowed down a little bit, and that's partially because the work that I'm doing with my full-time job is a little bit more occupying. It requires me to focus a lot more. There's a lot less kind of headroom, shall we say, to kind of really explore some of the other issues and start publishing content. But it shouldn't fall off. I know that, and I do plan to continue sort of growing it. But I would say that it's taken a little bit of a backseat, and that's really because I'm, a one-man band. It's just me doing it, and nobody works for free. I don't make any profit from the website. There's no advertising on it or anything like that. So it's not a source of income for me. It's just a place for me to give information. But I appreciate that if it doesn't get updated, people won't visit it, and it's a shame because, like I said, a lot of people do seem to rely on that. So I do want to add major information as and when it comes through. And keep it up to date as often as I can, but it's a bit slowed down. But I want to keep going on the issues that I've been focusing on recently, which is, again, road traffic safety, avoiding dangerous driving, and generally, I wouldn't say policing the local city hall around some of their ambitions and commitments to Cluj, but really kind of holding them accountable. I think accountability is very important, and unfortunately, some only react to journalists or media. So it's a good tool at the same time as being a good resource.
I see. Awesome. Can't wait to see your future projects, and thank you so much for accepting the invitation.
It's a pleasure. Absolutely. No problem at all.
So I hope you guys enjoyed our discussions and stay tuned for the next episode. Have a lovely day.